All right, here with reaction, Fox News contributor Kellyanne Conway, the incoming Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller, along with Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz. Kellyanne, start with you. Let's get your reaction to these last-minute maneuverings of Joe Biden and the administration, seemingly designed to put roadblocks in the way for the incoming president.
It's problematic, but everybody sees it. That's why Donald Trump's approval rating right now, as the president in waiting, is higher than the number of people who actually voted for him, the percentage he got in the popular vote, which is pretty high, Sean, because people already see him communicating with us instantly, free of charge, on social media, telling us what he thinks of tariffs for Canada and Mexico, telling us what he thinks of U.S. Steel, telling us he's going to Paris for the reopening of Notre Dame, going to the Patriot Awards with you and our colleagues tomorrow in New York. He is telling us what the president is thinking and wanting to do on their behalf. Joe Biden, already one of the least popular presidents in recent memory, is making that worse now. Democrats are mad at him for two things: for staying in the race too long and for then late in the game pardoning his son, and they're attacking him by name. He's embarrassing us on the world stage. But what was Donald Trump's closing argument, Sean? I will fix it. Everybody knows who's breaking it and continue to break it. Donald Trump will fix it. And I don't think some of the stuff that Joe Biden is doing is authoritative and that Donald Trump will have to own and eat it, meaning some of it he's doing would have to go through congressional approval. He's not even bothering with that. I love Charlemagne the God pushing back on these women. He's got higher ratings than they do, by the way. I looked it up before the show. But when he said to them, can't you admit when the Democrats are wrong? Let me tell you quickly the differences between the Democrat and Republican Party. We took our insurgent, our political outsider, our disruptor, and made him a two-term president. They took Bernie Sanders in 2016, who beat Hillary Clinton in 23 primary and caucus contests, and kicked him out, made sure he didn't get the nomination in 2016 or 2020. In 2024, they took their insurgent political outsider disruptor, RFK Jr., wouldn't give him access to the DNC voter rolls, the donor list, the debate stage. Where is he now? He endorsed President Trump. He's been a huge help, and he's going to be in his cabinet. That's the difference between the two parties. That plus we've gone from the Obama coalition to Trump country in 12 short years, and people like The View, people like Joe Biden, who's at the end of his 55-year political career in Washington, D.C. as the Loch Ness monster of the swamp, he can't take it. He never saw Trump coming. He's going to go into history, I think, as a very unpopular president who gave us an equally unpopular vice president.
All right, reports Stephen Miller that they are trying to Trump-proof, their words, the DOJ with all these late-minute hires. We know that they have new contracts. Why are they signing new contracts when they have a new president that they know wants to cut back on the bureaucracy and limit the size and scope and influence of government? Then you've got Ukraine. Why the guy that wouldn't allow Poland to give Zelensky 28 MiGs and wouldn't allow Ukraine to use certain bombs, now at the last minute is approving ballistic missiles being fired from Ukraine into Russia, knowing Donald Trump wants a negotiated settlement. Tell me the logic behind this.
It's desperation, Sean. The Democrats were not only beaten, but they were electorally crushed in a historic landslide. You've done the numbers, the Electoral College, the popular vote, historic numbers of Hispanic men, black men, Muslim voters. Every single demographic group moved Republican in this last election. Every single part of the country, all 50 states, moved Republican. So the Democrats are humiliated, defeated, and weakened. And these are all moves that come out of that desperation. But let's be very clear. When President Trump is inaugurated, he is the president. He can void those contracts. He can reverse any decision that Joe Biden has made. No president can constitutionally impair their successor from executing their mandate. And Donald Trump, on day one, will implement his agenda in its entirety, from energy to deregulation to bureaucratic reform to sealing the border shut to restoring peace and stability around the globe, and of course to pursuing record-shattering economic growth. It will happen quickly, and it will happen with the full support and backing of the Americans, Democrat, Republican, Independent, who are hungry and yearning for change.
How, Jason Chaffetz, do you prevent the Department of Justice from ever being weaponized again? How do you return the FBI, the world's premier law enforcement agency, to its former greatness and get politics out of that department? How do you return our intelligence community to its former greatness? It seems to me that a lot of people deep down inside the bowels of these agencies, departments, are going to need to be fired and wiped out. Is that possible? Will the president have that authority?
Oh, he has the authority. He just needs to have the people in place to actually make it happen. And you got to clear out that top tier. In part, you got to starve the beast for the bureaucracy, but for the law enforcement components, the FBI and the CIA and the other types of things, look, they got to be functional. They've got to be working. They got to reset the mission. Once you clear out the bureaucracy, clear out the people there, you have got to get them focused back on the mission. That is to make America great, to lock down that border, to make sure that the United States is no longer pushed around. And Donald Trump has been sending those signals, and he's doing it right away. He just sent out that truth message to those in Gaza and said, you better darn well release those hostages by January 20th, or there is hell to be paid. And you know what? Our enemies, they will start to respect the United States of America, and our allies will love us. They are starving for leadership. Who's running this country at this point, for goodness sake? Joe Biden's taking a nap. Kamala Harris is doing who knows what. They're handing out billions of dollars, signing these contracts. And you know what? America's sick of it, but they see hope over the horizon. It's in Donald Trump. He will get us back on track. He will make America safer. He will lock down those borders. We're going to go after the drug cartels. We're going to knock out the Chinese from the manipulation that they've been doing on fentanyl and everything else. And America will feel better and better and better. And it's all because of Donald Trump's his landslide victory. People believe him. He told the truth. And there's this surge of patriotism that is just contagious.
You know, Kellyanne, if the president simply keeps his promises, which is, okay, we're going to secure the border, we're going to stop, all these unvetted illegals from coming into our country, if he deports the criminals and other people that broke the law, if he returns to law and order in small towns and big cities, if he fixes the economy, which I think is going to be a little more, I think will be challenging, but on the other hand, he's done it before, he'll do it again. If he makes us the most rich, energy-dominant country on earth, if he restores America's place in the world, if he eliminates DEI and woke in our schools, won't that be in and of itself, those small agenda items that are huge, won't that be transformational in and of itself?
Yes, he's a transformational, once-in-a-century figure, once-in-a-couple-generation figure for exactly that reason. It's the messenger, and the delivery. The delivery now is not a style, it's a system. He went on TikTok, he went on podcasts, he continued to go on traditional and unconventional media. But the message and the messenger is what will carry the day. You just laid out exactly what he ran on. Donald Trump was transparent and granular about what he wants to do in his second term. In some ways, Sean, he wants to return us to where we were in 2019, before the year of the global pandemic and social unrest, where we had low interest rates, we had low unemployment, we had high wage growth, we had a majority of new jobs going to women in this country. We had really a rising tide lifting all boats. But you just said a few things that Biden made worse. In some ways, people want Trump, the Trump they had back, but they want the Trump to come and reverse so many of these terrible, spiteful policies. Please don't anybody tell me it was ideological and principled of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to kill those Keystone Pipeline jobs. That was spite. To pull us out of Afghanistan. What is the difference to have a female vice president of the United States here if the women in Afghan are less free and have fewer rights because she and her boss did what they did? They did a lot on spite. I think Donald Trump can get in there through executive orders, through reconciliation, through legislation with slim majorities in the House and Senate nonetheless, and through these departments and agencies in and of themselves that can do so many things in the dereg space to clean up the executive office of the presidency and our departments and agencies. He's going to move with alacrity, and he's putting a senior staff around him and a cabinet, all of whom can do that philosophically, practically, and more importantly, Sean, he's picking people, communicate a message. They can come onto your show and tell the American people exactly what's going on in their department and agency.
All right, Stephen, you're going to be the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. So the question is, how quickly can the president accomplish those main agenda items, the big promises that he made on the campaign trail?
Well, let me paint a picture for you, Sean, of those first 100 days. Rapid, total, complete deregulation of American energy exploration. You're going to see an American energy boom starting right away. You're going to see all the regulations that are strangling job growth in this country and driving up prices, driving up housing costs, go away. You're going to see the border sealed shut. The criminal aliens are going to be shipped home, and foreign countries around the world are going to accept the gang members and the cartel members that are poisoning our families and murdering American children. You are going to see peace begin to restore to the world as the president works to bring back harmony in the Middle East, harmony in Europe. You're going to see him work with Congress to pass another round of historic tax relief. And you're going to see a government that is accountable to the people again. The swamp will be drained on day one. Incompetent and disloyal people that are hurting this nation are going to be replaced with those who care only for the American people, the American worker, and the American future. That's what's going to happen. It will be a new golden age, Sean.
I'll tell you, if all that happens, America will be transformed. You know the intel community well. You know the FBI well. You know the DOJ well. You've investigated all of it. Jason Chaffetz, how hard will it be to clean those agencies out?
Well, you got to get into the bowels of it. You know, I was the chairman of the Oversight Committee. We were constantly going after them, but they would hide the documents. They would hide the information. But once Kash Patel, for instance, is in there, and he can get in there and have the access with Pam Bondi and start releasing those documents, you're going to see a transformational, it's going to fundamentally change the equation. The world needs clarity, leadership, and they need to understand that the United States of America is the world superpower, and Donald Trump delivers all of that. I've never been more excited about the future of our country with Donald Trump starting on January 20th.
I do think Kellyanne's right. I think this is an opportunity that comes along once every 100 years to really have a radical but real and necessary reset, return to constitutional order. And that means limited government, greater freedom, and that eliminates waste, fraud, and abuse, all the above. I think it can all happen. If it does, we get our country back on track. Thank you all. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.